August 1814. The War of 1812 is in its second year. The American military had just suffered defeat at the hands of the British invaders at the Battle of Bladensburg. The American government has fled from the city of Washington, D.C., as the British forces, led by Major General Robert Ross, quickly marched towards the capital. By August 24th, the invaders were at Washington's doorstep. The British troops progressed into the city with little resistance and immediately made their way to the Capitol building, which they promptly sacked before setting aflame. Damages to the Capitol building were substantial, with many important books, writings, and sculptures completely destroyed, although the building itself was not a complete loss, which was the original intention of the British forces. After setting the Capitol on fire, the British moved to the White House, which they first entered before setting it on fire as well. Many important writings and portraits, including the iconic Land's Own life-size portrait of George Washington, were saved by First Lady Dolly Madison and White House assistants just mere minutes before the British forces arrived. After the White House was burned, the exterior of the building remained standing, although it was still very severely damaged. The invading forces let both structures burn for the night before waking up the next day and burning several other government structures, including the United States Treasury and the Department of War. The city of Washington was left to burn for the next 4 days when an unexpected and very heavy thunderstorm, which some believe to have been a hurricane, put out the remaining fires. This same storm also produced a tornado, which passed through the center of Washington, D.C. Debris was sent flying through the streets, leading to many British soldiers being injured. The tornado lifted 2 cannons at one point along its track, dropping them numerous yards away, resulting in the deaths of several British troops and American citizens.
Reportedly, British Admiral George Cockburn was reported to have asked a lady if a storm of this magnitude was something that the people of this infernal country were accustomed to. Per reports, the woman replied simply by saying, "No, sir, this is a special interposition of Providence to drive our enemies from our city." Although there is no reliable historical documents that prove that this woman ever said these things, or if this woman ever actually existed, but regardless, it is a fun story to tell. One British historian later went on to write that more British soldiers were killed by the storm and the tornado it generated than in the defense of Washington, D.C. itself. British forces soon fled the city, partially as a result of the storm. Torrential rainfall ensued behind them, extinguishing the fires that still burned within Washington. The soldiers found their road out of the city to be a difficult one, as many thoroughfares in the region were covered by downed trees or flooded out. When they finally got back to their ships, they found 2 that were blown ashore and others that were severely damaged. President James Madison and his officers returned to Washington a few days later on September 1st. The War of 1812 ended a few months later, with no definitive victor. But many attribute the U.S.'s successful defense during the war to the storm that occurred on that fateful August night. Although its impact on the conflict is questionable in some regards, it did manage to pull the British invaders out of the capital and likely saved several buildings from complete destruction at the hands of fire. All thanks to one storm that saved America.